Oh, right. Sorry.
Again. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. Sweaty rat.
Okay, during the Blitz in the 40s, I believe it was 42, there was a young dock worker who decided that London was too dangerous. Bombs going off and the like, looting. Lots of looting. Did you know that people used to go out and wear like police uniforms and just say to people, help me put all this stuff from the shop in the back of my car, and they would do it during the Blitz.
Bizarre.
Oh, wow. Good times.
Cool story.
Anyway.
Continue with the other story.
Yeah, okay. So a young dock worker, his name was Marcus O'Reilly, Irish background, so he decided to move back to ancestral homeland Ireland. He made it all the way to Dublin, and he was going to try and make his way to Cork, which is where he originally was from. But a series of mishaps happened. I can't give you the details, names which are unwilling to be revealed. But he ended up in Belfast. As you might have guessed from the beginning of the story, that will play a part in this tale. While he was in Belfast, he took an apprenticeship as to an eye surgeon. They didn't call them optometrists back then. An eye surgeon by the name of Hans. Hans needed another person to help him run because he had a German-sounding name. He was actually from Austria, but people in that time didn't really distinguish that much. So he needed someone to run the front of the shop at least, so that people would feel comfortable.
This is really in depth.
Oh well, it's a deep story, deeply moving story, motion picture coming up. Watch yourselves. So for the rest of the war, Mark O'Reilly was helping Hans out in the what we would now call an optometrist, and he became quite proficient in this profession of his choosing. He ended up leaving Hans in about 47 after the war was over, and starting his own business. But there was not a great deal of demand for that kind of work, running low on money, so he ended up immigrating to South Africa in 48, the summer of 48, at least the British summer, so this was in about July. It's winter when he arrived in South Africa. And, yes, Jack, please.
Go on. I'm saying, go on. I don't want to interrupt.
Well, you did. Okay, in Cape Town, 1948, July, it was winter. Looking for work again. He ended up giving up on the optometry for a while, or at least what we would call optometry, eye surgery. Guys, so he ended up getting work in one of the diamond mines up in the Congo for a few years to make a bit of money and hopefully start up his business again.
Does this guy have a name or?
Yeah, Mark O'Reilly.
Alright, yeah.
Dock worker from
Fucking
London.
listen,
Gets
Jack.
around, doesn't he? Yeah.
What? I'm telling you this story. He was only about 18 in this story. 18 in 1942 when he left. So that would make him at 24 at this stage. So he's working in the diamond mines in the Congo. He saves up. He works hard. Living the American dream in South Africa. Saves up his money and decides to open his business. But it was around this time that he began to encounter, not that he hadn't already encountered, but some serious racism down in South Africa. Apartheid. As he was trying to build his business in Johannesburg, he felt that apartheid was something that he really disagreed with, didn't agree with his morals, seeing as he'd just lived through World War II, and all that implies terrible acts of genocide. And he feared that the same thing might happen in this country. So he decided to go from South Africa to the place with the least racism he could find. He ended up in Australia. In fact, ironically...
So that didn't turn out very well.
Ironically, he moved to Cronulla in Sydney and opened up an optometrist. But, so when the Cronulla riots did happen...
This is many years later,
This
of
is
course.
many years later. He'd become quite a pillar of the community. But when the Cronulla riots occurred, in the 70s? Was it the 80s?
Pretty sure
It was like recent.
Yeah,
It wasn't that recent.
It was like 90s.
Early
to
2000s.
early 2000s.
Was it the early 2000s?
Yeah.
Was it the
Cronulla riots.
We were alive.
So this guy's quite old.
Wow,
That's
yeah,
quite old
no,
now.
wow, that makes the story more interesting. I didn't realise it was so recent. Well, in the Cronulla riots...
So he obviously liked Cronulla because he stayed there for quite a while.
Well, he stayed there for quite a while, but then this one sort of
Tipping point. I
Tipping
suppose.
point. Thank you, Sean. Tipping point. He actually lost the plot a bit. He sold up his business and he moved to.
Oh, that's a shame.
You'll see. He sold up his business and he moved to Forest Hill, and he actually kidnapped about 4 or 5 different young women.
Oh yeah.
Kidnapped them, kept them in his basement, and killed them over a period of 5 or so months.
As you do.
Yeah. Yeah, and the moniker that they used for him in the paper was the Belfast murderer, because he always left a piece of Belfast behind at each one. It was some of his optometrist tools that were quite, what's the word I'm looking for, unique. They were distinguishable as from Belfast. So he became known as the Belfast Killer.
Why not the optometrist colour? The
Oh,
eye surgeon.
Well, it was the eye surgeon. That's a good one.
That is a good
That's
one.
That's a good one for later.
Yeah.
Jack,
I'll
you should,
keep that one in
get
mind.
into journalism.
Or serial killing. But that was, so that was a period of about 5 months. So that must have been in 2004. I thought it was in the 80s, but it wasn't. It was more recent. And he became known as the Belfast Killer. He was eventually caught and brought to justice. But then, a few years down the track, Jesse and Esther were having a discussion, and coincidentally, they decided to call their band Snowy Belfast.
Completely unrelated.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic, fantastic.
Dick.